I want to give you also a welcome to the OpenNMS user conference, and my talk is about business cases using OpenNMS. I have nothing to tell you about technical things. I think all of you can say more about technical things than I do. I am the CEO of NetThings, and my main thing is to take care that the business is running. This means sales, marketing, organizational things. And the technical things are done by our colleagues. And the main thing I'm getting in contact with OpenNMS is when I try to sell OpenNMS to customers. And I want to share some of the experiences I got with you, and maybe there are some things you can think about and take care about. So first I want to give you a very, very short history of NetThings and what we are doing. Then I want to talk about some difficulties in sales and marketing, and then some new arguments for OpenNMS, which maybe help you to get some of the higher level management involved in supporting your projects. So NetThings is a company which provides three main solutions. One is network, another one is telephony, and the third one is monitoring based on OpenNMS mainly. The next slide probably says everything about our company. This is what we are doing. We are doing connections between subsidiaries of companies, connections between their headquarters, connections between their operating centers and whatever. And the main thing is we are providing the connections, DSL connections, leased line connections, MPLS networks, and so on. And the main thing is to get the right network for the customer. So if based on the cost, based on the efficiency and security and other things. And what you see here is we have the headquarter and some Zoom part of it, and we have an data center where some sort of provider probably hosts SAP for the companies. And as we have many companies using networks from us and systems from us, we need to monitor those systems, and we are doing this using OpenNMS for many, many years. And for us, this is very helpful. We are also doing telephony things based on those networks. And for a lot of customers, we are doing OpenNMS projects, consulting projects based on their own environment. So at the end of the slides, you will see some of our customers. When I think about OpenNMS projects, it's very often a long way to get to the customer, and if you go to the customer, it's a long way to open their hearts and at the end open their pockets so that they say, let's do a project together. And there are some difficulties in sales and marketing, especially with OpenNMS, which we have to keep in mind. What we want to do using OpenNMS is give the customer the ability to keep an overview over their IT. This is, for my opinion, the most important thing. The second thing is they should keep their IT well documented. Also, OpenNMS is also helping doing this. And we want to provide them a tool which helps them to manage the IT. As a result, OpenNMS is helpful for a better communication between users, administrators, and the management part of the company, because they are always speaking different languages even if they are using English or German or whatever. The problems of getting OpenNMS into companies is how to explain OpenNMS. When I talk to members of the board, or sometimes members, CIOs or so, I found out that it's not easy to explain, because if you talk to a CEO, he thinks, oh, if I use OpenNMS, this makes the work for my IT department easier, right? And if you say yes, then they say, well, I pay them. They do not have to have easy work. It's just okay. But you have to explain the benefit of OpenNMS, and sometimes it's hard to explain this. The second thing is that the revenue is not easy to measure. We especially have some projects where you can measure the revenue if you compare it to other tools. For instance, at T-Systems, we were able to exchange a tool from Computer Associates with OpenNMS, and they are very pleased, and this saved them a lot of money. But very often it's not so easy to tell that you save money, and that's why it's not easy to measure. Very often the point is that the customer needs a short-term invest, so they want to put a bunch of money on the table and want to have the system up and running very shortly. And most of the OpenNMS projects I saw were long-term projects. So if you start using OpenNMS, it's not so like installing it, 5 weeks of work, and that's it. So you have to take care of the installations for a long time, and you must help the customer for a long time. Therefore, the customer gets long-term savings, but this needs to be explained. And there are also sometimes resistance against changes in the company, especially if you offer open source to companies. The management says, well, we have IBM, we have HP, we have different other nameless companies. They are offering me support and software licenses and whatever. Why should I use an open source thing? Is there enough support? And this is one of the biggest questions we have to answer. We say, well, our company exists for nearly 20 years now. We are doing business for a long time. We know what we do. We are using OpenNMS for a very long time, but many customers have the feeling, well, open source, is it good for me? And the last thing is, if you say it is open source, they expect lowest prices, even they want to have it for free. Taurus mentioned it very often. They think open source is free, like in free beer. I remember this. So what I'm doing in my company to come around with this, I'm trying to do this to increase the number of contacts to new customers. So spread out the good message of OpenNMS, be an evangelist, tell everybody that OpenNMS is the best system you can find under the sun. And sometimes this helps, but if you have a first contact, it very often takes a long time until the customer says, let's do a project together. Then it's very important to get some contact to the high-level management, to the board or so. It depends on the size of the company, but on many mid-sized companies it's necessary to get in contact with the board to explain them the benefits of using OpenNMS and to make their decision a little bit easier. And then you have to stay in contact with the customer a very long time. When I remember right, we were starting the OpenNMS user conference. This one is the 6th, right? We are starting it in 2009. Yes. I met a lot of guys attending the first conference, and some of them made some small project with us 5 years later, 4 years later or so. So it takes a long time of staying in contact until something happens. And this is what you have to keep in mind. I'm not sure, Taurus, how you are doing. I think you are a little bit faster in creating business, but my experience is that it takes some time. At the end, if you get some kind of order, some kind of contract with the customer, you have to do a good job. But this is what you always have to do.
How many of your customers have already used OpenNMS before they place an order with you?
Again?
How many of your customers are already using OpenNMS before they place an order with you?
A lot. I can't tell you any numbers about this, but most of the time it's so that they start some development projects in a very close department. They try it, and if they think, well, we can try to use it in our operating environment, then they tend to get some support from an external company, so that they can get a support contract to get professional support and help and whatsoever. But sometimes we have customers which think about, we need some kind of monitoring tool, tell me what you have, let's try it, and that's it. But most of them are trying it for themselves in some kind of sandbox environment. This year I met David several times, and I was talking to him sometimes, and he explained to me about Horizon and Meridian, and so I come to next slides, arguments for OpenNMS, the new arguments for OpenNMS. One of the main things is that the way of doing IT is changing. So if you think about the IT in companies in the past, you know that the companies are about to centralize their environment. They are about to outsource environment. This happens frequently. So when I think back in the 80s or 90s, there were some tendencies to centralize IT, and then they spread the IT over all the subsidiaries, and now they come back to centralize the IT again. So it depends on maybe some sort of development in technical things. So, but nowadays we have the tendency to centralize IT, is to have one data center, to have one location where you have servers, and you have to take care about IT. And you can use it in every subsidiary if you have a well-designed network. And the other tendency is to outsource a lot of things. If you think about Amazon, about Google, about different other companies, nearly every hardware vendor is creating some kind of cloud strategy. So you can outsource nearly every IT issue what you have in your company. So many services are outsourced, sometimes mission-critical services. So I think the companies have to think twice about doing this. And if they do this, they have to take care that they are not locked into one vendor or not trapped, so they must pay more and more and more, like SAP is doing. So at the end, a new type of CIO is needed. So in the past, if you compare different CIOs or different IT responsible persons in the companies, they had another job like today. So I show you in the next slides what I mean. So what was the responsibility and the things an IT department has to do in the past? In the past, they tested new services. Some guy in the company has an idea, we need a new ERP system, we need a new CRM system, we need whatever. And the thing of the IT department was to test those tools, whether or not they are suitable for the company. And if the tests were fine, they have to install them, then they have to support them, they have to do the capacity planning, and then they have to do supporting the users. So in the past, the IT departments have to have a lot of knowledge about different tools, different things. And this means for many companies a lot of employees, because every employee is specialized in some sort of IT way. One is specialized in using SAP, another one is specialized in doing VMware, and another one is specialized in network equipment. And that means if you want to keep all those all those guys in your company, you have to hire a lot of men. The IT department now works a little bit different, also in mid-sized companies and also in bigger companies. The IT department mainly have to keep control over processes in the companies. So in the past, they were responsible for installing PCs and monitors and whatever, and now they are more responsible for creating processes and helping to deploy processes in the companies. And the other thing is they have to organize the outsourcing partners, because IT is getting more complex every year, and so it is not affordable for companies to have specialists for every thing in their own company. So they definitely need to outsource their parts, and sometimes they outsource service delivery, which means if you want to have new desktop PCs, then a company comes and deploys all the desktop PCs. If you want to have new servers, another company comes and is creating and building the new servers and so on. And sometimes also the service support is outsourced, so that the IT department is just there for organizing the support partners, and the real work is done by other companies. And the main thing is that the IT department have to keep the independence from partners as long as possible. So if you are dependent on one partner, then probably the partner can do with you what he wants. And probably in the future this will cost a lot of money. So if you think about ERP systems, for instance SAP, they are rising their fees from time to time, and very often the companies are complaining about this, but what should they do? Switching to another ERP system isn't possible, because it would influence the processes of their companies. And this is also possible in nearly everything. So it's easy to change the PCs on your thing, on your environment, but it's not easy to change operating system, and not easy to change other apps you use. At the end, the IT department now has to take care about security. So characteristics of the CIO in the past. The CIO needs a deep knowledge of hardware and software, and he needs some kind of organizational talent. And nowadays, the CIO needs a generalized knowledge about IT, so he must have an overview of what's possible. He needs a very good organizational talent, because he needs to talk to a lot of stakeholders, a lot of companies involved in their IT, and he has to be familiar with processes. And this is a complete change in the characteristics. And the most important thing for a CIO now is to keep control. Because if the CIO loses the control over the processes and over the IT, then it might be dangerous for the companies. If you think 25 or 30 years back, nearly every company was independent from IT because the invoices were written from a typing machine and so on, just 30 years ago. Yeah. But nowadays, nearly every company is dependent on IT. So this is the most important thing. And I think that OpenNMS is one tool which is helpful to keep control. It's not the only one, but it's one tool which helps you to keep control over the IT. Sorry. When David mentioned first the new strategy of OpenNMS to me, I was very pleased because I like the new strategy. Why do I like it? Well, for customers, we have a lot of them who don't want to spend money on a regular base or on a license base. We have this horizon. We have some customers which are not that big. They have, let's say, 50 employees or so. They don't want to pay a big bunch of money for just a tool to control the IT. For them, it's good to have Horizon. And for them, it's also good to know to have a tool. If they need professional support, they can buy it. And the second thing, this Meridian is a very good thing because now we have the possibility for mid-sized companies who think the standard support or the ultra support is much too big for me, but I need some support and I want to have a contract with some company to run my business. For them, Meridian is one of the best ways, I think. And that's why I think OpenNMS and the new strategy would be a success. I hope so. And I think this could help. So that's it about the marketing issues, the sales issues, and the possible ways of thinking about using OpenNMS. On the last slide, I show you a short list of some of our customers we actually have. There is Vattenfall. They are using OpenNMS to manage their energy environment and energy networks. We gave them some training lessons in Berlin. We have T-Systems. Actually, we are managing a system for also an energy supplier. It has around 8,000 devices to monitor, just network devices. Antonio knows about this. It's not an easy thing. And we hope we get some other projects from T-Systems by the end of this year and hopefully at the beginning of next year. Stadtwerke München, they are using OpenNMS also with some consulting help from us, R&D Insurance, Stadtwerke Görlitz, Deutsche Bahn, and many more. The many more are mainly those smaller companies using OpenNMS. So these are the highlights from our side. So this brings me to the end of my speech, and we have some 5 minutes left to ask me some questions if you have one. Craig.
What do you think we could do to increase the overall visibility of OpenNMS to CEOs? Lower-level decision makers?
Marketing. Doing marketing. I think OpenNMS is on a good way. When I look at the website, it looks nice. All the explanations on the website are good. Also, the strategy with Meridian and Horizon is a good strategy. I have the feeling that in the past, a lot of mid-size and bigger companies are decided against OpenNMS because they have the feeling they don't know how OpenNMS is doing in the next couple of years. And I think with this Meridian, you can open their mind to say, well, you have to use only a small amount of money to put in and get professional support, and you get long-term support. And in the future, you can decide to get more professional support. You can get some features from OpenNMS if you pay them, and you can be part of the community. This is one thing. The other thing is doing the OpenNMS user conference. Spread out the word that the conference is a good thing, and do what we do in the past. So I think sales and marketing, these are the two things we need to do to spread OpenNMS more open. If you look at other companies, for instance, Isinga, or I don't know the company, you know them, yeah? They're doing good marketing. For some reasons, Nagios is also well known to nearly everybody. I have no idea what they are doing different from us. Maybe it's easier to install Nagios for the first time, but if you want to monitor a lot of tools, a lot of systems, then you come around and find out, okay, I need some other tool.
My experience in Nagios tends to be more because originally, if you go back many years, it was just a very good app to install. And then it's grown with reputation with many people.
Yeah.
But it's also a very effective environment, so they grow out to at some stage if they keep expanding using it. Everybody is using it at some point. And what I heard from people I've talked to in various Linux environments with regards to OpenNMS is that it is either in ridicule for being Java, and therefore it's going to require at least this big of a machine to run, or that is just frightening because of the amount of XML files, which tend to scare some people that just want a quick Perl thing to run and ping something.
That's why you saw on the list mainly those bigger companies who had this way of pain behind them. So they used Nagios for some reasons and found out, no, it's not good for my environment because my environment is too big. They used Tivoli, they used HP OpenView and other things, and the pain was to spend a lot of money if you use it in big environments. And at the end, they come to OpenNMS, but for some reason, I think OpenNMS is not that well known as Nagios is. So probably we have to work on this.
From your point of view, you're talking about big companies that have been working with HP OpenView, name it what you want, and they have been getting pain and they changed to OpenNMS. So did they came to you, please could you help me, or do you look for those companies somehow and try to come in there?
Well, as we started the user conference in 2009 and we organized it for 4 years, for some reason we are known to do OpenNMS. We have a website where we write down that we support OpenNMS. We send out newsletters to contacts we have, so if you some of you might receive our newsletter, so that you can keep in mind frequently that OpenNMS is supported by NetThings, and NetThings is doing OpenNMS projects. So very often they come to us, and very often it's so that one colleague changes the job, goes to another company, and then he says, I have in mind OpenNMS, I have to ask NetThings or so. And very often it's so that some colleagues talk in different conferences or private connections together and say, well, use this, I have a company, they are providing support for this. But it's not so, when I look at the sales process for our networks and for telephony devices, then we are doing the normal way of sales. We are calling companies, cold calls, and ask them, do you have some projects, based network projects or telephony projects? And they say, yeah, come around, we have to talk. This won't work with OpenNMS. We tried it, but it won't work. So it's mainly so that
Why do you think that is? Is it that they don't actually have projects for network management, they have projects for networks, and then they need network management later, or is it, what's the?
I think that network management projects are driven by administrators and IT departments and not driven by the management. A telephony project is driven by the management because they know the telephone devices are 10 years old, they have to be replaced by a new one.
More visible.
And everyone has a telephone on his desk. Yeah? And with a network, it is so that the networks are also very hard to explain, but the management has in mind we need a good network. So we have to talk to somebody who knows what he does. With network management, the management very often thinks, well, if I have a tool, I get no benefit of it because I make the work for the IT department easier, and who cares about the IT department? So I think, and very often it's so that the IT department, the guys in the IT department speak another language than the business guys. So if they say, we need a management tool, they say, hey management, hey boss, could you give me probably some money for doing this? And he says, come next week to me, and that's it. And they don't force it, they don't come again and again. And if the marketing department, for instance, comes and say, hey, we need some new kind of telephony, the old system is breaking up, we can't sell anything, then they would get the money for that. It's very often, I think that IT people are not able to sell themselves to the management.
One other aspect I see quite a bit is if you come in with OpenNMS, it's usually a tool for the IT department, for the technical people to deal with their world. You have the exact data. Whereas what I see in many companies, like one customer I work with now, is that they will have SolarWinds or Orion on the wall because they're Windows people, which are IT, can point and click and do all that, make a map that can hang up on the wall. Whereas OpenNMS, even if it gives you really good data, it's not as easy for what the management sees as an average IT person, which is anybody. They just take a hand out the door, grab the nearest guy that smells like IT, and say, make this happen for me, and that's very likely to be a Windows guy. In most companies I work for,
yeah,
at least.
That's true.
So, like with your telephony example, if you buy a telephony system, the telephony vendor will come to you and say, by the way, here's our tool for managing it. Whereas if you just out of thin air say, we need a tool to manage IT, that's a technical request. So we have many companies I work for where we have the tools of the IT department and the tools for drawing maps on the walls. And those are very distinct, different. And the maps on the walls are worth the licensing money you pay for.
If you remember before Antonio was creating this new map tool, we not I, but the colleagues of the friend of mine made NUCVIS able to run with OpenNMS. And when I went to the customers to explain OpenNMS, I always showed them NUCVIS with some Visio graphics. Yeah? And this makes them, okay, I see my well-documented IT, that's it. They understand it, but they want to have this nice pictures.
This is a good introduction speech.
Yeah.
Because it's all about maps.
Yeah, yeah, it's absolutely very important. So we use the maps.
But it seems maps are very good for marketing. Really.
Visual information is always good for marketing, as long as your visuals are good.
I don't think we have invested the most part of our time. The main problem was that at the end, most people know maths and geeks. So it's something like you know, I'm a geek, what do you want me, and so, and it's, you know, skills. It's something that you cannot say, well, I'm a very nice guy, I can just do marketing, but it, you need to have, how to say, knowledge and understanding of what are the main mechanism of communication, what works and so on. I have to say that I have made, I work with tiles, and most part of my job was from tiles. But it's easy because it's something like some geek, other geeks says, oh well, I see OpenNMS, this is a geek situation, I'm a geek, we are geeks, and we do, and it's nice. In different situations, it's harder. And we work as geeks. Also, the big project we made in Wind, at the end, we do it because we were geeks. So we were able to discuss with that guy, Romani, for example. But at the end, we stay there. They say, oh, look, how I'm so mad, these guys. But you know, no one knows OpenNMS, so you say, oh, what is OpenNMS? It's open source. You have a good idea of open source, but you are not well known. You are not identified as a person working for that. So we need maybe more pictures, more events.
Well, the
I
problem,
don't know.
the problem I've seen is that there's really not an easy way to market network management. HP sells servers, and oh, you just bought some servers. Here's our network management. IBM sells servers. Here's our network management. We don't fit in the traditional open source conferences because the best open source conferences tend to be grassroots. So they're run by lugs and local organizations. And again, you're dealing with the geeks, not the management. We get lost in Networld Interop, or what's the huge show in Germany? Yes,
CeBIT.
CeBIT. So it's a bit of a struggle. I think even if we had a better story, it would still be very, very difficult to sell. So part of what I focus on is giving the geeks the tools they need to sell it for us.
But on the other hand, this reminds me, we have been 2 times at the CeBIT. We had a small booth there, and we were there just with the OpenNMS story. So we said we are the OpenNMS guys. And we had a lot of contacts there. And we did it in 2012 and 2013. And 14 and 15 we decided not to go to the CeBIT. But nowadays we are have benefits from the contacts we made in 2012. Yeah, and
you had mentioned in your slides the sales cycle for OpenNMS tends to be long.
yes, it is.
So because you're selling a platform in a sense. I mean, that's one of the things we're striving with Minion to do is basically say, okay, like when I did the green light at Airspeed in Ireland, you know, we spent a week doing a very custom project, and the idea was what parts of that engagement could we package and put into Minion so that when people, I call it the perpetual green light. So basically, you buy Minion for basically $500 a month, and every month you get at least $500 worth of updates, reports, on average, updates, reports, configuration changes, etc. And so that more people can get into OpenNMS without a large investment.
I think in my experience, as a lot of my stuff has been trying to get service providers, and a lot of it's been through the telemanagement forum, and that's a very, very long sales cycle. But we have seen success. You know, we're in BT now. We're in Arkiva really as a result of that work. But you know, you influence for years, you know, and then eventually the penny drops, you know, and people start saying, oh, that might be a good thing to try. I think actually where we're weak and where we need to do a lot more is on channel strategy, because I think the SIs can take us in where we can't get in ourselves. And I think the stuff that we're doing with vendors, sort of a Juniper partnership, is potentially very good for us as well. But we haven't necessarily been good at using that effectively. to get ourselves front and center.
So I made I worked with the Vodafone for the Juniper Juno Space. It was because they have implemented Juno Space for their, I don't know, because they put the platform. And that's also. And what I found is that the Juniper Professional Services has no knowledge of the platform.
No, that's what we found.
It's
But
something that we should.
actually, now what's interesting is that the guy who put in OpenNMS into Arkiva is now going to be in charge of professional services in EMEA, and he's very keen, once he gets in place, to come back and talk to us about what we can do to help.
On that note, Juniper, one of my ads, I represent a fairly large Juniper customer, and the problem with Juniper is that they to some extent are falling apart in Europe because they've had too much bad luck with outsourcing it all to India, and they're still recovering. So we just in Norway saw that 80% of the people that we usually would rely on at Juniper are now off to Palo Alto and other places. On the strategy for OpenNMS getting indoor, there's a completely separate angle that I use quite a bit, and Towers is not entirely going to love me for this one, but the pizza strategy, just slide it under the door with somebody in the IT department and use it for something small scale. So basically, we just get it in for a very small scale problem. I'll do the hours required to just get up and running for doing whatever simple task, and just let it grow with them. And suddenly, in the back of the business, management suddenly has a tool that when it comes to push and shove with the tools they already have, you can just say, well, hello, we already have it. It's just a matter of just expanding it one more step.
Yeah, well, so that's a very good strategy if you can do it.
And the part that Towers is not going to love about it is that what I've used it for quite a bit is then you get to go, now that you have the seed planted in the company, you get to go around and do safari of the company. What kind of systems do you have? And I also do other things outside of that. So it becomes your sort of shopping tool for the company, which has generated piles and piles of hours for me, starting with trying to get OpenNMS and then ending up fixing fairly large networks and other things.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that at all. I mean, but that's different traditional. So, you get in at some level and you expect never. I think that what the point Uwe was trying to make is we have a very compelling story at the C level that we fail at. And how do we meet, that kind of.
Maybe we can have a look at other companies. For instance, maybe you know PRTG, which is a monitoring tool. I see them doing advertising in nearly every IT magazine in Germany, and I think they are selling good. It's a Windows-based tool, so nobody likes it, but they are selling it.
Well, there's 2 points there. I mean, first of all, are we able and are we trying to attack the Windows audience? That we haven't got strategy around that.
Yeah.
And the second point is, if we had a couple $1 million in marketing budget, would it actually make that much difference? Would that be the right thing to do? Quite often, the trouble is you can put a lot of marketing stuff out there, and then you don't actually have anybody to answer the phone. When somebody calls, it's the next step of actually going and visiting them, and
I want to state another, how to say, thing for OpenNMS. And tomorrow morning, I got an email from a friend of mine. He says, well, the Bank of Italy has to remake the data monitoring solution. So, and the budget for this is 4,800,000 euros. Okay, and there are something like 250 special requirements. Well, we are not compliant only with 10. So, just looking at the requirements we have. That's a very, very strong solution for such kind of situation. So that's also going to be, and I don't know how I can participate with this because, and the past, I had a good relation with big Italian companies for doing this kind of project. And that's also another way of doing strategies for public. You know, in Italy there is a law that obliges the public companies to check if there is an open source before buying a proprietary solution. Something like that. But this is the size of the business is interesting.
It's the same in the UK. The problem with those large opportunities, so David and I did a RFQ response, 90% compliant for an opportunity very similar, and we were thrown out, we were actually in there providing the solution already, it was already working in trial, but because we weren't a big enough company, we couldn't place that big an order with us. So the channel strategy is really important in terms of how do we work with companies that can take those big orders and then place an order against us. If we're not a bank.
Yeah, in fact, they say, in fact, the requirement is that you made a project in the last 2 years of at least 1 billion euros at the same time of project, and for 1 billion euros, and one is 500,000 euros. In my opinion, for 5 billion euros for monitoring, it's more or less, I guess, 25,000 devices. It's too much, but seems okay. In any case, that's the size of the business we should work for, and we should make all this. So we should have a team for doing this all over the world with the documentation. Some of course, this is in Italian. I have to write Italian, but I have a lot of what I've done in the past. I can just work with the cake and paste. But it's very important not to participate only one, but to all. This is a way of doing this and visiting the people, making questions and so on.
So my question, I suppose, is how do we do that efficiently with very few people? You know, if only 1 in 10 RFQs actually produces any result, and it takes you a month to do each one.
And the problem I have with RFQs is just usually you end up with a primary vendor who's at the 11th hour, there's a big thing that they want to focus on, and they're like, oh, we got to do something about management. And I get to say, you know, please be doing my doubts with this question. Here is this Excel spreadsheet with 400 questions on it, and I need it by tomorrow at 10 a.m. It's like, they're not going to value you as a partner. They're not going to value you as a solution. They don't understand it.
I know what does this man. He sends the spreadsheet to me.
No. But so I try not to. I mean, we've had, you know, if we can be the primary vendor and actually have a decent chance to reply to something, I'm all for it. But I have a very bad taste from the past experience where someone, because David will do these, because I won't. So I'm not doing this. David will do this, and he'll stay up all night. He'll do it, and he never did.
It works. They have a spreadsheet like that. It's our customer from, I don't remember, 5 years, 6 years.
They're here today.
If I could send an wish to the universe, I would say to improve the user conference a little bit more. It's a good way to get more attendees, get more known with OpenNMS. I think this.
So part of the question there is, you know, I mean, I agree with you, because no problem with that. But I'm wondering if there are other things we should be doing, if there are other conferences or workshops, or we should be tagging along with other similar conferences, you know, have a plan across Europe of how we actually cheaply but effectively get out there.
Well, when we did the conference in the past, I know that a lot of efforts were spent on making the conference well known. So we sent out letters, those small printed flyers and so on. And even we picked up the phone and called the guys and said, well, do you want to attend the conference? And it was hard for us to get it. But I'm nearly sure that the user conference has more potential. So if we are able to create the agenda for the conference a little bit earlier. This would be very helpful, and to send out the agenda to others. For instance, Mario Katovic from Stadtwerke München likes to attend the conference, but he couldn't show his boss the agenda, and so he.
Another problem with this here, even though it's really nice to have it in the fall, is that all the processing of getting the permission to go and all that would suddenly land in the summer holiday time when the managers are off.
Yeah.
So either have it later, which isn't as fun, or have it back in the spring again.
Or advertise it longer in advance.
Yeah,
We should really get it set now for next
Isn't-
year.
Isn't
So, let's end this
Yeah.
thing, give people a big